let's get started on the other segment to the show. This is something that we did last year here on Type 40 Live. There is more. There's even more. So yes, on Doctor Who Day last year, we conducted what we called the Type 40 Companions of 2020. And the idea was that we threw a lot of names up in the air, people who had made a big, significant contribution to either Doctor Who itself, in terms of the fiction, or the world around Doctor Who that we all like to play in, and we celebrated them, and then we picked a winner on the Christmas show. And people seem to really get involved in that. The people over in the Facebook group and who follow us on social media, they played their part in choosing the final companion of 2020, who was Peter Capaldi. It was last year, and so we thought we'd do it again this year, and we're launching the Type 40 Companions of 2021. Here and now, everybody.
Woo!
It's slightly different this time. Not quite so many combatants in the arena this time, but each of us have come up with names and ideas and things to throw out there for the rest of us to chew over, and for you guys out there watching on YouTube or on Facebook or listening along on the podcast to hit back, let us know who you would pick and why. And first of all, drop us a postcard to Wood Lane.
Point to yourself, HQT.
Everybody remembers the old BBC sort of slogan.
811-8055.
Noel Edmonds used to have it across the top of his console, didn't he?
Yes, now. So you probably get through to Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh no, it wasn't me. Oh no.
Yeah, so each of us is going to talk a little about one person in particular that we feel has made Doctor Who that little bit brighter in 2021, when you consider that there's been precious little bit.
Yeah, that's the year we're in, love. That's the year you can sell by date on.
Nothing. There's nothing. Doctor, there's nothing.
Okay, moving on.
This year, was it?
Ian's chewing that one over. So the first of our picks, we're going over to our starry-eyed girl, Sarah Graham, to talk a little bit about this gentleman. Who is this, and why do you want him to be considered?
Sarah?
I think he mugged me a couple of days ago. He looks like a mugger standing in his
What was that? Sorry, Ian.
I said, it looks like a mugger, doesn't it?
It's from Salford.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so who is this, Sarah, and why do you want them considered for the Type 40 Companion of 2021?
Oh, this is my beloved Ninth Doctor, and just the fact that he's back in the fold, kind of, with Big Finish. And it's not to everybody's cup of tea, I know that, but it's the closest we've got to him being back as the Ninth Doctor, and this man made me a fan. So I've been super excited about this, and it's just listening to him, hearing his voice, hearing him say fantastic, hearing that, when you put the CD on, because I always have to have a physical copy, and it plays that 2005 version of the theme.
Starts thumping in your headphones, doesn't it?
It doesn't take much to make me happy, but this is Doctor Who's back in a sense, and I know when he's opened his mouth in a few interviews, he's been a bit
abrasive.
Yes.
Good rock and roll.
Yeah, good.
Do it.
I like that about him.
Obviously, he was honest about.
Not coming back.
He wanted to get paid, and I'm not going to begrudge anybody getting paid, especially after the past 20 months or so. The stuff about current Doctor Who and Jodie, obviously he's got to pay lip service to that. I don't really take much notice, and
he said precious little, to be fair to him, about any of that.
He doesn't.
Well, not for a few years, yeah. He's not a geek, is it? He wouldn't care about stuff like canon. It's what people would call a normie himself. But there goes the fez now. Yep.
So yes, I'm not. The things he had said. I think he has supported, having a female doctor, but I just kind of overlooked that because it seems to be the relevant.
I honestly think that Christopher Eccleston does not care one jot either way. Anything that happens with the show. It doesn't concern.
He probably doesn't even watch it either. So
no,
of course he doesn't. He's got better things to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
incredible talent.
own career. Yeah, as you say, JT, he is incredibly talented. The man can pick and choose his projects, and the culture war and the things that divide this fan base. And I don't think he would look at them as any of his concern at all.
Oh, no,
and I don't think he'd be judgmental. No, and I don't think he'd be judgmental in any sense. I think the work is what's important to him. Doing good work, being true to what he believes, and what's on the page, and as long as it connects. You think he's a good actor as well?
Yeah, I do. I think he's very talented. He's a very talented actor,
and it's transferred so well. I mean, because it is not done, audio adventures before, but when I've seen him in the interviews talking about it, it's been really animated, and it looks like he does care about what he's doing. Because obviously, he wouldn't put his name to it if he wasn't. And he was saying like, kind of like a physical actor he is, and they've had a laugh when he's been recording because he's throwing his arms around everywhere and I can imagine that. I can just imagine
there are
him
videos, aren't there, Sarah,
his
of him recording
leather jacket, doing what he did.
But there are videos, Sarah, of him actually in the booth recording these, and still being very, very, being very physical, being very functional as an actor, being enthused, and also working with, in the clips that I've seen, he's got people in the same room with him, and it's almost as if he could be on screen. He seems very, very present and completely in the role. Barnaby, have you heard any of these? Have you seen any of the footage of Chris bringing the character back to life?
I have seen the footage of him in the recording booth. I haven't listened to any yet, but I do exactly the same thing when I'm in the recording booth. It's just, I'm quite a physical actor as well. So when he's out there just flailing his arms around, he's come back into those shoes so quickly, and you just see it in the recording booth annoyingly because we only had one season as him as the Doctor. So I loved seeing that. I was actually watching before the stream started, The Unquiet Dead, for the first time. Thinking about 10 years.
I like that one.
God, was he good in that?
It was.
Even just certain bits where there's just it's concentrating on another character, but you've got him in the back and he's just smiling, and it's electrifying, and I'm just so brought to him, and I just saw you see so much in his gaze, and I miss that. I just miss
The Unquiet Dead is the only decent script that Mark Gatiss wrote for Doctor Who.
And one, the best thing, as I said to Dan before in the previous episode, the best thing about that episode is that the Doctor was the man that knew, that was the cleverest man in the room. And I love that about Doctor Who. Love it. Yeah.
Putting Charles Dickens in his place.
That's right.
Realizing later on that he was wrong, the alien side of him came out through that to say, actually, I've been a bit rude to you, and you are a genius of your species, of your time. So I quite liked that part of it as well.
His recreation of the role on audio is very, very charged, and he's completely. I think some of the stories, as one would expect, are better than others, and some of them serve the character better than others. In some of them, the Doctor, I don't think he's ever passive. I don't think Christopher Eccleston would take a script that was passive, but a lot of them are very. How can I put this? They just simply wouldn't work on television or as films. They work beautifully in audio, and I haven't heard all of them yet myself. But you can tell that he is completely sort of engaged with the entire story. Knows where the character is going, and although I don't think he's familiar with any of the incarnations, either side of his, I think he knows where this character meets his own personality and the qualities that he can bring to the part, and the sort of stories that he thinks would connect with people, with the fans. And I think he's met enough of us by now to have a fair inkling of what people latched onto about the character. And Christopher Eccleston, let's just recap here. This is the 57-year-old actor, believe it or not, who is presently starring in The A Word on the BBC and Close to Me, which I think is a Channel 4 show. He's born in 1964, two-time BAFTA Award nominee, best known for film and TV work, and of course playing the 9th incarnation of the Doctor in Doctor Who. He's also been in The Leftovers, as well as movies like Shallow Grave and the G.I. Joe movie. Yeah, Thor 2, The Dark World.
Oh, he only did that for the money, though. I loved him when he said that.
Yeah.
He said he took the money and run. I thought,
Very, very honest.
I love you.
TV stuff like
well,
Hillsborough, the Jimmy McGovern thing, Hillsborough, and Cracker also for Jimmy McGovern. Our Friends in the North was also a huge success for him and Daniel Craig and Gina McKee. Everybody was on that show. And even as far back as Let Him Have It in 1991, Christopher Eccleston seemed like somebody, like a talent to be reckoned with, I think, Ian. And to see him come back to the bosom of Doctor Who, he's made his debut, didn't he, on the convention circuit, probably around 2.5 years ago now. He first started to appear, I think it was a Gallifrey one. Yeah, in a very sheepish original, would you call it a performance, appearance on stage? But I think he's done 3 or 4 now, and that's
I love it when they ask him.
And sort of lured him back to the role.
Sorry, Dan. I love it when they ask him, would be part of the 6, and everybody started cheering. Then after they stopped cheering, he went, no.
That's the other thing, though, isn't it? Because as much as for everything that we've said about him and the Big Finish stuff, I think we can't help but respect how he says his piece. He doesn't play to the crowd. He knew the answer that we wanted to hear, both the people in the auditorium there, Charlotte, and those of us who watched it streaming on YouTube afterwards. But he was still true to his principles, true to his story, wasn't he? What do you feel about all that?
Well, he really upset them, didn't he?
But Chris doesn't care. Chris is to the point. And it's sort of. It is funny because he sort of does that thing. Oh, I'm from Salford. Like, he repeats that quite a bit. But you can see that sort of not care attitude in the best way, that he will just say what he wants to. He won't be edited. He won't be told you can and can't say this. And I do think, Chris, when you do watch The Ninth Doctor, and that, obviously he was my first Doctor, and his Doctor's always an interesting one because I was quite young when I watched him. So I didn't get all the nuances. I didn't get the layers. And I think Chris's Doctor is easily the Doctor that I've grown to love more as I've got older. Because the more you watch his series when you're a bit older, you can understand that his incarnation was coming off the Time War. And that informs so much of his character. And that you've almost got this sort of thing of a Doctor. I see it now as who knows that he has to heal, who knows he wants to go back to who he was before the Time War, but he just can't yet. There's too much mental damage. So you get this almost like a character that's fighting in himself. And you see that throughout that first series, that he'll be really cheesy and like mega smile, and you go, that doesn't suit. But it's because he's relearning, is the way I now see it, how to almost be that adventurer again, that Doctor that he was before. And obviously we now know Chris's mental struggles, just he was having himself. And
he's been so honest about that, hasn't he? So generous in talking about it and writing about it in his book, Barnaby.
Yeah, but you know what, right? If it's true that Russell T, when he said that in the convention about why he won't go back to Doctor, if it's true, that's really horrible. That's a horrible thing to do to the man. Do you know what I mean? And announce that he was leaving, and he gets abuse in the street because they did that and all that stuff. It's horrible. No wonder why he doesn't want to go back to them. No wonder why he doesn't. This for him. This is a balance, isn't it? Let me go back to Doctor Who to please the fans, but not go back to Russell T and the main thing itself. So.
And please the fans, he definitely has been doing. I mean, we see pictures of him at conventions all the time. Pictures like we've got on screen at the moment for those watching on YouTube and Facebook, where he's interacting there with a group of his punters. These wonderful pictures from conventions and signings and all the rest of it. And he just gets it. For somebody who is got this reputation, Barnaby, as being quite... well, he is a very serious man, but the idea that that's only one side to him, there are different sides to this man, and he does get it. Now, he's a fan of various recording artists and footballers and things, so he absolutely gets what the fan thing is, I think.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside, he seems very... Yeah, there we go. There's the two different sides right there. Very, very sort of terse and serious, and then just underneath, I mean, he's just a... Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I hate to be the cog in the wheel. Or however you pronounce it. But is he only doing this because he realizes now he's got to embrace Doctor Who, and now he's got to be good to the fans and stuff like that?
You can never tell with actors.
You can never tell. No,
we're very devious.
He's been honest. He's been honest.
I know that.
I'm really an utter bastard in real life.
He's been honest about the fact that work has been short.
Yeah.
He's been honest about the entire thing, and I think that's another reason why he's a strong candidate for the Companion of 2021. I think it sets a great example, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm not biased at all. Yeah.
Christopher Eccleston is our first nominee for the Type 40 Companion of 2021. We've got several more to come. Secondly, we have this gentleman, and Charlotte is about to tell us why she's nominated Jamie Magnus Stone here.
I'll probably have to explain this one quite a bit to some people. Right, because I, as JT says, I'm a nutter for currently watching Series 13. He is the one bright spot. That's the best way I can explain it. But I do think it is important with the current production team that if there is a good thing in there, there is something that you find that's actually showing skill and actually impressing you. I think we need to celebrate it. We did that with Sasha last year, and I think Jamie's sort of taken that role.
Yeah, Sasha Dewan was one of our nominations last year for Companion of 2020. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, so I almost see Jamie as sort of this version.
Well, who is this? What is he?
Okay.
Who is he?
Well, Jamie Magnus Stone is a 35-year-old Scottish film director and animator. He studied at the National Film and Television School, and he's the son of Sally Magnuson, grandson of Magnus Magnuson.
I wonder how he got that job then.
And television at the Edinburgh College of Art, where he made his first 2 films. And in the August of 2011, he directed his graduation film Skyborn.
Lucky bastard.
And has since gone on to direct The Last Dragon Slayer for Sky Pictures and for shows like Queens of Mystery, which I think is a brand new sort of detective show.
Right.
In 2013, just after he left university, he directed The Last Day, which was one of those minisodes for Doctor Who there, which was about the Gallifreyan army in the middle of the Time War.
I remember that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
He directed that, and a couple of years later, that's when he went on to The Last Dragon Slayer. And just lately, in the last few years, he's sort of returned to Doctor Who. Initially, he directed Spyfall Part 1, which was the premiere episode of Series 12, wasn't it? And then he returned to direct a couple of last-minute scenes for Fugitive of the Jadoo, and he directed all the elements to that episode with Captain Jack in them, Charlotte.
Yeah,
and did a good job then, did he? Because they were terrible.
Yeah, but
they were absolutely awful.
The main reason I'm highlighting is because of his Series 13 work. Because
it was off the strength of those. Well, let's just sort of draw the dots there, because the stuff with Fugitive of the Jadoon, that was the episode where allegedly there was a bit of a meltdown at Rothlock on production of Doctor Who. They called it Chaos in Cardiff at the time. When you watch back Fugitive of the Jadoon, you can tell something's not right with that episode. It is all over the place. And apparently Jamie was parachuted in to direct those scenes. So I think he does quite a good job there. And maybe it was the fact that he managed to pull those things together that got him 3 episodes of Series 12, which were Praxius, Ascension of the Cybermen, and The Timeless Children, and he's directed one of the 2 blocks, hasn't he, for Series 13? And there's been some beautiful work on screen, hasn't there, in all of those things. Whatever we think about the actual episode themselves, this is the man. He's the lensman, isn't he? That's you're a director, Ian. You know the distinction yourself. So is it the fact that you feel his work stands out, Charlotte, compared to other directors?
Yeah, it's just that I think, like, in some of the scenes in the Suntaran episode and some of the Weeping Angels episode that have just gone, there was actually some really scenes that made me stand up and notice them. And I think that's because I'm not one that usually has an eye for directing. It's not one that I naturally notice, if I'm being honest. And the fact that there was actually quite a few scenes, like the battle stuff that I said in our review, I thought that was really well shot when they were just on the battlefield, seeing bodies and bits like everywhere. You got that sense of
But you do realise the director's not responsible for all of that, don't you? You do realise the director only plays a small part. Then you got the editor, then you got the cinematographer, then you got the cameraman.
Yes,
so you can't just say it's him. You know what I mean?
But by the same measure, looking across,
I haven't seen it, so I can't comment.
But by the same measure, when you look across at other episodes and they don't look as good, then what do we focus on? As Charlotte says, it's what meets the eye, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
and
I
it's
said
also
it. You
mood.
can't
I
you
think
can't really
that's
contribute
him.
to the director, can you? Because you don't know what he actually done. I don't know. I never saw the episode. Sorry, Charlotte. Carry on.
But
Sorry,
Ian, it's what I found impressive. He's managed to actually make mood, and I think that's him. Because of the other bits, I understand they're a part of it. But the fact that I'm actually one of the dialogue's not making me feel anything. The actors aren't making me feel anything. But do you know what? Certain scenes and shots are actually making me feel something. Like in the Weeping Angels episode, that was bits of that episode were really creepy, were really atmospheric, and I think
but that might be down to the editor, though. You know, that's what I'm saying.
It's a vision. It's a well,
and that might be down to the DOP. So I don't know. I haven't seen the episode.
Ian, you've got to watch the episodes to find out.
I know, but I don't want to.
I mean,
You might have to.
If this director then, if he was like maybe on the crew list under RTD, would that be something that would get you excited then, Charlotte? Because I've not watched it, so I can't see. But if he actually directed, talent,
like that, you've got to understand what the director does and what everybody else does around him. So you've got to understand what he does, and then you come to the conclusion of what he did in that part, or guess whatever. But
Ian, at the end of the day, it's what's got an emotional reaction out of me.
And I said it might not be the director that emoted that emotional response of you. It might be because it's lit well, or it might be because of a certain performance from an actor, or it might be because of a camera shot. But you know what I mean? It could be anything.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Just to add to what to add to what Dan is saying, you almost you can sense in series 13 so far when he's not the director.
Okay,
we've had one episode where he wasn't directing. I think I could be wrong there.
Okay. I didn't mean to give you a hard time.
Once Upon a Time was directed by somebody else. I mean, I thought that the Halloween Apocalypse was really quite flat, but I agree with you about War of the Sontarans, and I actually agree with you about Village of the Angels too. We haven't recorded our review of that yet, so that will come in time. But I do see exactly what you mean, and I think that you can. My hopes for the remainder of Flux are not high. You know, they aren't in many respects anyway. But visually, I think that we're going to notice a massive difference because Jamie's not there. And although, I mean, a couple of the episodes last year were positively heinous, I thought elements of Ascension of the Cybermen did have a certain energy to them. So I can see this man, and I'm quite interested in seeing the Last Dragon Slayer, the Sky thing that he's done. You know, so I can see that he could perhaps be one to watch. Although the fact that he clearly is connected, as you say, and that does make you wonder. But I know what you mean, Charlotte, and I think of everybody who is presently on the credits of the show that we love or did love. I think this is probably the solitary name at the moment that holds any real promise or interest, and who is doing anything unexpected and even slightly unusual.
Yeah, well, and I do think it's we get told so many times, oh, we're so negative, and I think a bit of me almost picking him is to show we can see good, we can highlight good, but
agree,
and you shouldn't let, obviously, like I said, the writing, everything else around it impact the thing that, for me, like I said, it's the one thing watching series 13 so far.
Right.
And when you told me, I was thinking, and I just thought, I think he's a good name for that reason as well.
Thank you, Charlotte.
I respect that, but what I'd like to point out first of all is, if anybody's saying that we are negative on this show, tell them to go to hell. You cannot be negative through an opinion. I've just had this argument with some idiot on the Facebook page. If you have an opinion, it's not positive or negative. It's an opinion. There's no right or wrong because each individual person has the right to an opinion. I know democracy is being drowned out by these idiots going on now, and it isn't the death throes. And you and Barnaby, very lucky to know what democracy is in your lifetime, the way we are going. But it's an opinion. So it's not negative or positive on this show. It's just opinion. Secondly, as well, I think it's I've never heard of this guy, so it's not a name. I'd be interested if in future you guys are watching whatever his name is, because the real thing about a director is not I think it's so sad when we're now talking about the look of a show. Oh, the CGI is amazing.
That's
Oh,
not
that's
the
brilliant.
director.
Sod all that. The director, as Ian he knows what I'm going to say. It's about the performance. Barnaby, you'll understand it. The director brings out a performance from the leads and from the actors in the show. Now, has he managed that with the likes of Whittaker and whatever her name is and what's his name that are in the show? Have they actually managed to bring in characterization and an understanding of what they're in and stuff like that? Because that's the trick of a director. So there's the bigger.
Yeah, but the other
They're
characters,
still working with the same script,
you can
though, aren't
see
they,
it. You can
Jayton?
see it.
Sorry.
They're still working with the same script, though, aren't they? When the script comes down, it's given to the director. I understand that perhaps
He's
in
trapped.
the classic series, people like Paul Joyce, he pretty much rewrote Warrior's Gate. But I think in the modern series, in the current series, when a script comes down to a director, it is largely set in stone.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the script. When an actor gets a script, they have to interpret that script, and the director must help them to bring that script alive.
Yeah, but they can only help them so. If the material's poor, though, they can only help them so.
No,
and this material is poor. There is still only so much they're going to be able to do between them, the director and the actor.
I disagree. A good actor, and I'm going to bring this up again.
I don't know. I've never done it.
Capaldi had terrible scripts, but he brought them to the screen. They were solid performances. A good actor could turn a Crossroads script into a classic.
I hated the Robin Hood episode, but Peter brought everything to life just through his performance. You know what I mean? You know, Peter. I mean, I think JT's got, but also I think Dan's got a point as well. So if you're trapped in a crappy script, there's only so much you can do. But if you're a great director like Steven Spielberg, he'll move the camera to express a mood. He'd also bring out the performances out the actors as well. Has this man achieved it? Also, I'm a bit puzzled why a white male is directing this new version.
Let's not go into that.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm puzzled about that.
One of the things about this young man is he's new into his trade. He's going to be learning this. He might become more empowered. If you see him in anything that isn't Doctor Who, please let me know, because I am intrigued to know how he works and who he is.
I'm pretty sure.
But I would be very interested to know if you see him in a contrast.
Looking through his filmography, JT, given the fact Doctor Who is a high-profile show, how little work he's actually done, but I've never seen the other stuff, and I'm going to seek it out, because I do feel that this man has brought some life to, in some instances, some really quite dire stories, and I can see why Charlotte's focused on him. Digby Strawbridge says, "Thanks for this, Charlotte. Thank you for watching this." It highlights the tragedy of this era when talented people will try and make this nonsense work. Raymond Williams adds, he's not a miracle worker.
Not many of us are.
What I've heard from listening to your reviews and other people's review is that the supporting cast every week are fantastic, and it's the main three. I mean, this is what happens when you hire box tickers and a plank of wood and a comedian.
Which one's the plank of wood?
Alison Stevenson adds there's very little actual acting in Doctor Who Flux. The pace is way too frantic. I was interested to see what you'd have to say about that, Alison, because a few weeks ago when you were last here, you said you were going to watch it with a completely open mind and how little you'd seen.
Yes, my mind fell out.
Thank you for getting back to us. Thank you for getting back to us on that. We're glad you've made it through. Derek Brady says not seen any of this series. No matter how good it may or may not be, they've blown it with the previous two seasons from me. I mean,
the ratings would suggest, Derek, that you're not the only one. There are millions in the UK that have that as well.
And maybe some talent will survive this car crash and make it through to another era, so we can see really what the real worth is and what the longevity of their career may or may not be. Talking about somebody who has... Yes, thanks for that suggestion, Charlotte. I think it's an interesting one, and I think Jamie's a potentially an exciting character of the future. 35 years old.
Even Graham Harper could get...
Darling, Graham wouldn't do it, would he? He would turn it down. He would turn it down straight away.
Okay, but we're going to have to move on and look at the third person. This is my suggestion, and it's probably who you think it's going to be. So my suggestion for companion of 2021 is no, it's not, but it is Julie Gardner. This is the 52-year-old TV producer originally from Neath in Wales. Julie Gardner, of course, was the executive producer of Doctor Who, alongside Russell T Davies and Mal Young and Phil Collinson from 2003, 2004, right the way through till 2009. And she's been working in television since around 1995. I found out today, in fact, that her first job was on Our Friends in the North, which also starred Christopher Eccleston. And just in the last... Yeah, well, of course, she now, after a few years working in the States, she made that transition with Russell T Davies through Torchwood to go and work with Russell on Torchwood Series 4 for Stars over in the States. She's now, her official residence is in America. That's where she lives. But she was the co-founder with Jane Tranter of Bad Wolf Studios. Now, if you remember, earlier on in the year, I'm going to keep harping on about this because although it was announced around August that that Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf were taking over production of Doctor Who from the BBC, we had been crowing about that on this show as the only reasonable way forward for Doctor Who. We'd been talking about that since probably late January or February and predicting it would happen probably since around April. So, in fact, I myself... I'll put my hand up here and say I'd been making direct pleas through this very screen to you, Julie, to come and save Doctor Who for us. And come August, it was announced that for all intents and purposes, maybe she has, when the BBC and Piers Wenger announced that, the Bad Wolf was getting the independent
That's because they watched
contract,
our show,
whatever
mate.
you want to call it, to take Doctor Who from 2023 onwards. And Julie is there in the thick of it with Russell. We have heard speculation. Well, we know that
They heard us. They heard us.
We know that this. We know, don't we? Several people on the panel. We know that this show is watched further and wider than you may well believe. So it isn't impossible that Julie,
Hello,
if you are
BBC.
out there, if it was us in any way, thank you and thanks. Yeah, please save Doctor Who for us. I'll say again, please save Doctor Who for us. But yes, Julie was an integral part, I believe, of the success of Doctor Who from 2005 to 2009. I feel she was, by all intents, I think Russell even admits that she was pretty much his sounding board for not so much the ideas of the scripts, but how to run the show logistically.
I think they worked and developed it.
That's how she continues to do.
They developed it and they honed it as a product, not just what's on screen, and the way that it reached its audience and maintained its audience. They achieved all that together. Here we've got a picture of Julie and Russell there. That's on their way to Murray Gold's wedding about 5 years ago. So they've been close friends ever since. But
Do you live in America, Dan?
She officially lives in America, but I understand she's based mostly in Wales at Wolf Studios, which, as we talked about last week, is based mainly in Cardiff, but they have got studios facilities in several countries. But why? Just in the last couple of days, it's been announced there's been a further development here. So yeah, I've got a picture of it. So this is something that's come to light in the last few days. This is a brand new company that's been registered with Companies Houses. This is the UK government's official website. So this is 100% true that earlier this week, Whoniverse One Limited was registered as a company with Companies House, and Julie Gardner is listed as the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Whoniverse One Limited, alongside Jane Tranter and somebody called Natasha Hale. That's a name that I don't recognise. Russell T Davies is not on the list of people who are heading up this particular company. I wondered who of you have seen this news. What do you think Whoniverse One could possibly be, Sarah? And Julie Gardner being there, and we've talked about this on the show, you see, in the past, how even though it's Russell T Davies, it's his name that's in the paper, it's his name above the door. But for us, we've said all along that it's Bad Wolf and Julie Gardner. This is going to be a long-term home of Doctor Who. So what do you think about this news, Sarah, and what are your instincts about what Whoniverse One could be?
It's exciting. It means things are getting real. I believe, Russell's the creative side. This is the nitty-gritty. This is the business stuff. And hopefully, this is going to be the marketing and, everything else you know, that goes along with it. The merchandise and all that kind of thing. I hope.
See, I think it's something.
This is. Go on,
I think this is spin-offs. I think this is
Russell's
spoke
clues
about
clues in the title, mate.
They weren't
over and
talking
over
about.
again.
Weren't they talking? Wasn't that the
about
news or
this.
something?
Yep,
Yeah.
they were talking about it. Yep.
Well,
Sorry,
we've been talking about that for a year.
Yeah.
Saying, you know, because Russell said months ago that he didn't understand what the BBC was doing with I'm paraphrasing, just to make that very clear. He didn't understand what the BBC was doing with Doctor Who now. He didn't understand Doctor Who now. He didn't understand why they hadn't built on what he was doing back in the day, where he had 3 shows in production at the same time. And he didn't understand why that wasn't going and why that hadn't continued. So it's not a surprise to think that there could be a whole channel with a new production company just showing the main show and any associated spin-offs to do with the main show.
It's going to be interesting.
It could be like the Marvel and DC stuff, because that's what Russell wanted.
Hooniverse is a word that we all kind of use, isn't it, Barnaby? And it does conjure up that sort of connected universe.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different spin-offs that could happen with, you know, with all the wonderful cast of characters in the last couple of seasons. So it's even more of them.
You could see an animated series, a bit like Shaun the Sheep, based around the Pating, or maybe an animated series. How about an animated series where we get a little plasticine Yaz? Could be a bit like Morph. It should be a lot more animated than she's been on screen for the last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about it is I've said this on the show for months now. This is why they have to get the next version of this show absolutely 100% correct. They have to bring us back as fans. We have to be excited. I'm really not excited about it at all after Russell's rant a month or so ago.
That's a shame, because you were like 6-7 weeks ago when the story broke.
When you look at the reaction show when the story broke, you can see that I'm sort of on the fence about it, but open to it. I'm not now, because Russell's made it very clear which side of the fence, and it's on a different side to me. And I don't like that opinion. What will be the big tester for me is that the Noel Gordon soap drama, whatever you want to call it, that he's in production with.
Yeah, that was confirmed this week, wasn't it?
If that comes on and it's not preachy in any way, then there might be hope for Doctor Who. But they have to get Doctor Who right, because if they want to have a new cast of characters which are going to lead off into other shows, because they may not want to rely on things from the past, and quite right too, if you can get people watching the show with brand new characters and have Doctor Who very popular again, you can do what they did with Still on Earth and Journey's End and have the Doctor and all these other bits and pieces, all these shows bleeding into one for these great big build-ups and meet-ups occasionally, like the American shows are doing with the superheroes all meeting every now and then. Crossover, that's the word. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the advantage of a new series.
That's, you know what I hope for the new Doctor Who? I hope that just like JT, they don't keep going backwards about, you know, the angels, the Daleks. I mean, you're going to have a Dalek or two in there.
Of course,
but
you would have to.
I think Russell will definitely move forward with it.
I hope that they create new villains, right?
Yes.
New situations. The Doctor moves forward rather than keep referring back to what happened in the past. And I hope that they take this era and they shove it in something new and wonderful and interesting. That's what I hope. Now,
and watchable.
Watchable.
They're doing that now.
Julie was there across. Julie was also across the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood, as well as Doctor Who. She was there the entire every step of the way.
And Sarah Jane.
I didn't like Torchwood at all, but you know, Sarah Jane was okay. But I just hope that they create new characters, new evil villains, and move forward that way. Yeah,
they have to.
They
really have to.
And I think that in the time in between as well. I mean, we've spoken before about the things that Julie Gardner's done since. You know, she went to work on Da Vinci's Demons with Aidan Turner, which I never saw, but it ran for 2 or 3 years. I Hate Susie with Billy Piper.
With Billy?
I saw one episode. That was enough for me.
Lately, she's been integral in His Dark Materials, which I think, you know, and I've no love for the BBC lately, but I consider that to be a quality fantasy show. And then, of course, there's the Discovery of Witches, which JT has been raving about for pretty much for 12 months, and which has succeeded in adapting some really successful books that people dearly love, not offending fans, and growing a fan base on what in the UK is a minority channel, JT. So in the time that Julie's been away from Doctor Who, it's likely that she's learned something as well, isn't it?
Oh, I think she's learned an awful lot, and that's why Bad Wolf has become very focused and very successful, because they have churned this thing out. And it's interesting watching Bad Wolf now, where the Discovery of Witches sets are being dismantled, and the Doctor Who ones are getting ready to go in. You know, they're in that sort of lovely phase now where they must be excited over blueprints and designs and discussion, because they start filming next year. So it's very interesting that that's happening. But it's just, my concern is just Russell, don't drop the T. Davis.
We have a comment here from Crimpling Doubloon in the chat who says that IMDb is still crediting Russell T. Davies as an executive producer on the Centenary Special.
Well, he is.
Now, I haven't seen that to know whether that's true or not.
He is an exec. Yeah, I mean, he's writing the Centenary Special, and he's an exec on it. Yes. And if it goes to series, which it's going to be,
are we getting the Centenary Special mixed up with the 60th anniversary special?
The 60th special. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we've got that mixed up. But yeah,
different things. I would caution Crimpling Doubloon and say that things that are on IMDb aren't always right. And I don't believe that Russell will be involved in the Centenary Special. The thing they finished filming that. Now,
they finished
best part of 2 months ago. I understand it was all locked. It was all Chris Chibnall, but I would be interested in seeing if that's misinformation or not. I don't know, but
I think that's somebody getting in the wrong place, like I've just done, because that was a BBC Studios only production, as Doctor Who is now. And when that finishes with the Jodie Whittaker series and the Chris Chibnall era has now finished, and it has now finished as a BBC Studios. When it hands over, the next credits you get in 2023 onwards will be BBC Studios and the Bad Wolf logo. So yeah, it means the 60th anniversary one.
The only possible reason I could see he could get any sort of credit, and this is very, very tiny, is if there's any link towards his era right at the end of the centenary. Yeah. That's the only reason I could see him getting a credit.
But then Moffat didn't get an on-screen credit for End of Time. I don't think there will be. I think there'll be a sort of clean break.
Do you know what? I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for the future of Doctor Who. You know, look. Let's just ride the wave and see where it goes.
Talk about icons. We're about to be joined by another icon.
Oh no! Please,
hurtling out of his own time, Eddie. It's the original lunatic for Doctor Who Day. Mr. Simon Horton. Good to see you, mate.
Hello, everybody. Happy Doctor Who Day, happy anniversary, as we used to call it back in the days. It was just happy anniversary.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, you're right.
And you're just in time.
Who's left? Who left? Just as I arrived.
What happened to Charlotte?
That's rude, Charlotte. I'm disappointed. I walk in the door.
Charlotte, where are you?
I'm so sorry I'm late, everybody.
She'll be back.
Cropping up the last
in a moment.
How are we for time?
Quite all right. Hope you've had a good evening. We're overrunning as usual, but we're about to get stuck into the second block of the Doctor Who Companions of 2021. This is our selection of the great and the good, depending on how you look at it, of people who may get awarded the prestigious title of the Type 40 Companion of 2021 in a couple of weeks on our Christmas show. So we've had 3 names in the hat already. We're about to go with Ian David Diaz and his pick.
What 2021 though? But I haven't watched any of Doctor Who this
okay,
year.
Well, you've chosen Louise Jameson.
Oh, I've chosen her.
Okay, you chose Louise Jameson. So yeah. I want you to tell us, why have you chosen Louise Jameson for your companion of 2021? And welcome back to Charlotte Shields. Don't know what happened there.
And Simon knocked me off. That's what happened.
It's my fault.
So tell us about Louise Jameson then, Ian, and why.
What? There's no reason why. There's no reason. I mean, look, I just picked her because I love Leela. That's all. And you know, that's that. Really, you know, I can't think of anything she's done this year.
I think Louise Jameson is a strong nominee for pretty much any year. Come to think of it, Simon.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just sorry. I just got distracted there by Matthew Pounder's comment. The Queen is back.
They don't mean Louise, they do mean you, Charlotte. So yeah, this is Louise Jameson, the 70-year-old actress famous for theatre and TV work. She was born in 1951, English actress with a variety of TV and theatre credits to her name, including Dr. Anne Reynolds in The Omega Factor, Blanche Simmons in Tenko. There was Susan, who was Bergerac's on-off girlfriend, wasn't she, in the series of the same name, and even a stint on EastEnders as Rosa DeMarco. But so many theatre credits to her name, it's just ridiculous. Wouldn't even know where to start. But this year, Louise, she was born in Essex, and went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and spent 2 years with the Shakespeare Company before first appearing on television and being cast by Pennant Roberts as Leela in Doctor Who opposite Tom Baker in 1977. So this is a woman who is celebrating this year her 50th year in the acting profession, which I think is so it's timely, really, that we talk about her in terms of 2021. So here she is on screen as Leela, the various aspects of this, I think, really quite a wonderful character that Louise brought to life. I won't say from very little. I think it was quite strong on the page initially, but she remained true to the character and always gave it her best, I think.
The reason why I like Leela so much is because that she was not from the typical, she was from another planet. And also, I like her as an actress as well. I've seen her in lots of stuff, and she's really good. Even in her 70s, she's really good. But I also, you got to take your hat off to her. She did all her stunts in Doctor Who. There were no stunt people to double her. She leapt from the stairs in one episode, right down with the knife in her hand. Do you know what I mean? It's, you got to take your hat off to her. And also, she's sexy as well, as far as I'm concerned. So there you go.
A wonderful actress and so relatable, I think, isn't she, JT? You've met Louise a few times, I would imagine. What's she like in real life?
She's very much what you see is what you get. She's very approachable. She's lovely to talk to. She's very charming with fans, but she has been around for a wee while now, so she knows how these things work and how the conventions work. She's a hard worker. Big up to her for always working and doing some lovely pieces. So yeah.
I just want to add to that. I've met her a couple of times, and she's just adorable. She's just one of the nicest people you could possibly hope to meet, and she's so proud of her Doctor Who credits, but also she's so proud of everything she's done. She's just a gorgeous human being. She really is just she's one of those people you just want to sit down with and have a cup of tea and a sticky bun with, because she's just one of those kind of people you can just have a good old chat with. She's lovely, adorable.
Well, in all of her roles, and strangely in Leela too, she's kind of relatable, and I don't know why some actors just have that.
She is, and also, as I said, it looked on the first glance, it looks like she was doing nothing to the character, but then when you look at it again, you can see that her performance is very subtle, but it means 100 different things when she says a word, or when she's, especially in my brain's gone on freeze. The one with the robots, the killer robots. What was that one?
Robots of Death.
Yeah, Robots of Death. Sorry, the Robots of Death. She's absolutely fantastic in that. It's like, sorry, my brain went on freeze for some reason.
But again, it shows what we were illustrating before the break. Give an actor a script and direct them properly, and encourage them and bring out their talent. I mean, what Lou got right with Leela is she understood immediately this is a savage warrior. Yes. And by God, she plays that, but she also brings down that sort of innocent charm of that savage warrior, to be able to say this warrior is out of her time everywhere.
I still think she's one of the most underrated actresses to ever take part on the show. I just think her performance as Leela is just utterly sublime, and it's a really difficult role to pull off. On the paper, it would have looked very, very flat and uninteresting. Oh, it's just a savage. That's all there is to it. And yet she brings so much to it, and the other thing you've got to bear in mind with Louise Jameson is she was working against a very, very belligerent Tom Baker by his own admission at this point. He really didn't want another companion on the show at this point. We're back to the talking cabbage, that this is the point he wanted a talking cabbage, not Leela. And he was horrible to her. But again, by his own admission, he apologizes now how horrible he was to her. And she was really miserable and depressed. And I think, she was even considering whether or not to even come back for the second series because she was having such a miserable time with Tom, and yet she still manages to act as brilliantly as she does and as beautifully.
Going back to her talent as well, the costume doesn't help, of course. I mean, it's all right for her initial story because that's what everybody was, that's where she's from. But then to take that character out of time and keep it in that costume, Lou rose above that. She was saying, look, there's more to this character than this leotard I've been given. And especially at the time, with everything that was going on in the world at the time as well, her talent shines through. So a very strong and credible, and if you've ever seen her on stage as well, Spacebookers, you'll know, my God, that woman acts.
Also, I like the idea that she was the one that dealt physically with the physical stuff, and the doctor would be doctorish. And she'd always beat somebody up, even if it's badly choreographed.
She was believable.
Like
in recent movies and TV shows, you get this like really skinny woman who's supposed to, can beat up anybody.
Yeah.
But because she got the physicality, she was fast.
Yes.
Somebody mentioned in the chat how dynamic she was. You believed that she could come up behind you and just slit your throat.
Yeah, but it was for the dads, wasn't it? I mean, that costume was definitely for the dads watching.
Well, it was partly that, but they realised they were onto a winner, obviously, when they saw Lou in the thing. But that's part of the reason it never changed. But if you look at that first story, that's the only time it ever fits. And again, that's the only time Leela fits into that, because that's the brilliant thing about Face of Evil. It's very much about Leela and her tribe and that story. Yeah. But when you take Leela in the costume out of that and take her around the universe, Lou got that. She really got that. Yes. This warrior, this savage, is not going to be at home anywhere, which is why the ending is always a bit odd. Why girlfriend?
That's
another show. Another show.
It's really brought it to life for me. I've got a quote here from Screen Online. They talk about Louise Jameson more so in context as a woman who rose to notoriety in the 70s and has never really been off screen since. It says that Louise Jameson is one of a handful of actresses who both benefited from and contributed to the opening out of roles for women on British television during the 1970s and into the 80s, when she became associated with a series of tough, resourceful and independent characters in genres where women had conventionally been either victims or vamps.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that you're absolutely correct there with Louise Jameson and with Tenko generally, and Louise in particular.
Tenko in particular.
So, we hear now all about how women need more big, important roles. Well, maybe they do at this moment in time, but they sure as heck didn't back then. There were plenty of them, brilliant, juicy roles. And you look at Tenko, and everybody accepted and loved Tenko. I mean, I adore Tenko.
Brilliant.
And you adored it because it was brilliant television, rather than because you were being told, oh, we've got to have strong females on television, where you know what I mean? They just did good television with quality, strong female roles, and everybody loved it. This is not what we're trying to constantly drum home these days is nothing new. It was all there back then.
But the difference was back then is that these were original female characters that were made to be original female characters. Now they can't do that. Now they have to take something that's been established and gender bend it, and change it to say, right now it's a woman's turn to do that. That's the main difference. And look, Lou managed to do all that in a bloody leotard.
Yes.
I mean, crying out loud.
Or in Tenko, she did it in rags with it's great. She's a brilliant actress. Brilliant.
But the fact that you're bringing up the outfit shows also that in the character you had obviously the feminine traits of the outfit and what she looked like, and there was no escaping that. But she was, like Starry said, she could slit your throat. So it was this brilliant combination of the feminine and the tough. And that's what also you don't get nowadays. It's all one way.
You can't be feminine these days.
Yeah, you're right, Charlotte. And of course, what's interesting is that she would slit your throat, and yet you would still love her as a character. You wouldn't be alienated from her as a character as a result. That's a really fine line to walk, and she walked it, and she did it brilliantly.
Charlotte, can I ask, have you seen The Face of Evil?
Yes.
Right.
It's JT, isn't it?
Have you seen what the men are wearing? I don't find that funny. Have you seen what the men are wearing in that episode?
Oh, I can't remember right now. Are they just as
They're wearing a
revealing?
lot less, even less than
The
Leela.
men wear less than Lou does.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
because they are savages, they are warriors, they're animal skins, and that's the context of the story, which again you don't get today because you just get the token female character.
And looking over onto the chat here.
Yeah, go on. I was just
looking over into the chat here on YouTube. We've got several comments here from people sharing their love, not just of Leela, but of Louise Jameson generally. Darren Bradley says she was 26 at the time that those photographs that we've just been looking at, they were taken. And Derek Brady mentions the fact that she was a strong female character in Doctor Who and before Jodie Whittaker. Surely not. Blue Planet says that Type 40 always gets me wanting to rewatch something. In this case, they mean
story.
The robots of
one of
death.
my favourites. Yeah.
Julian Raxel says her performance in Talons is just remarkable.
Yeah, she changed her outfit in that one as well.
She did in a lot of the stories. I loved her in Horror Fangrock.
That's probably my favourite scene. Sorry, that's probably my favourite scene of her as well. When she's in, she's trying to sit down for a civilized meal with like. I mean, that is what they took that savage part and put the next the most Victorian civilized gentleman ever. And it was like completely, and it's a recipe for hilarity.
Thing.
Exactly. The whole thing about Leela is that there was a sort of arc there, and it was the My Fair Lady arc. The Doctor was supposed to be teaching this savage.
Alison Stevenson says here, and I either didn't know this or I'd completely forgotten, Louise did not know what costume she would be wearing in Doctor Who until she actually turned up for filming. There was no fitting beforehand. That seems...
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like the BBC.
Peter Harrington says Tenko is fantastic. And Robert Payne says, even in Bergerac, her character was no nonsense. I remember it being playing a very strong character in that show.
She even looked gorgeous in that as well.
She was. In fact, spoilers for anybody planning on watching Bergerac. I think they killed the character. The character was murdered about halfway through, and the fan base was distraught at that. And I don't think that Bergerac ever really recovered from Louise leaving the show, looking back.
Yeah. No, maybe not.
He became Detective Barnaby, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
The guy played it. Yeah.
So, earlier on this year, Louise Jameson was the subject of an entire audience with style. I think it was a 3-night theatre event that was put on for her somewhere in Norfolk. I think it was, I can't remember exactly where it was, Weston-super-Mare, somewhere like that. And I just thought that was a lovely thing to do for somebody who's, I think even the British public who can't put a face to the name will recognise her, will know her voice.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And will have seen her in something. She has to be one of the best.
Especially our generation, she will be known for Leela. I mean, when she went into EastEnders, the press was full of Leela in EastEnders, because our generation will know, because we grew up with her. She did a year, but we grew up with Leela.
The thing about that generation of actors was that all they wanted to do was perform, right? So whether it be stage or film or TV, all they want to. Now actors want to be famous.
That's all it is.
Huge difference between them. Do you know what I mean? And,
a huge difference because they can't act. And all you have to do is look at television today.
Well, and also, again, if this was today now, we would constantly be being endlessly reminded about how Leela is such a strong female character, and it would be constantly hit over the head. Whereas again, in those days, no, they just wrote good stories and they acted them well, and they just went and
and also everybody has to remember the Doctor's an alien, right? So when she was dressed in that as JT saying a leotard, it didn't matter to him. Do you know what I mean? It didn't make no difference to him what she was wearing.
That was the magic of the character.
He
was an alien, and he didn't have human attributes, which is why they've bullsed up the modern version of Doctor Who, because they've given him feelings which he wouldn't have because he's not human.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that's, again, a nice choice, a timely choice, being as Louise is celebrating 50 years in the business and somebody who's always been there. So, I think that's a really good pick. Over to, now, I hadn't got anybody lined up for the Bad Wolf of 2021 award this year, but I know somebody who has. So we're going to go over to JT now, because you've picked somebody or something, haven't you, that you want to talk about in particular for 2021, because you feel that they've particularly made the radar, probably not the kind of way that they would have wanted to or intended to, but nevertheless you feel it's their turn to take a little fire, don't you? So do you want to tell us why you want to talk about Big Finish Productions?
I don't really want to talk about Bog Fanish, but it's stand by your beds. Because I'm going
Oh, my ears.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2021 has been a disastrous year for this production company. I am not a fan of this production company, as the Space Bookers will know.
Not JT, you've hidden that well.
Certainly not. And I think this year has shown just how ridiculous they can be. So what I'm going to talk about specifically here is the fact that for no reason at all, they cheated Jimmy Dreyfuss like dirt and fired him from his role as the master on these CDs.
Yeah, and this is something that we heard about several months ago and has now become common knowledge, hasn't it? Thanks to GB News interviewed James Dreyfuss about that, didn't they?
Absolutely. I mean, if you followed this story on Twitter for quite a long time, you will know that what happened is that Big Finish are so frightened, like the elements of the BBC, of alleged trans activists, that because he supported a phenomenally successful woman called J.K. Rowling, who some of you may have heard, who defends women's rights, and because he signed a letter supporting what she was preaching, what she was saying about the difference between men and women's rights, and then because he actually had the balls to sign a letter, an open letter to Stonewall, to say, look, you cannot tell people how to run their lives or what their opinions are. There must be a reasoned debate, which was the stance at the time from them, was no debate over these matters. You do what we tell you. He was got at by various small aspects of Doctor Who fandom, which I was disgusted at.
It was reprehensible behaviour. I think, regardless of where you feel about that issue, the way that James Dreyfuss was publicly rounded on was completely indefensible.
And what's happened with that is, of course, that, and I think he's now started to look at things slightly differently, because other Doctor Who fans have supported him to say, well, this was terrible and blah, blah, blah. But for a while there, I genuinely believe he thought Doctor Who fans, all Doctor Who fans, were absolute nutters that needed to be avoided at all times. So I was totally embarrassed by this. And this has come through this unnecessary gender change, the Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker era, and what's been generated through them. So the way that Big Finish dealt with that, of course, is that they just removed his name from the audios they did and fired him without telling him, which was just disgraceful. And I thought that was just because they were frightened of trans activists. And then a few months later, they cancelled John Barrowman for something that happened over 10 years ago, which we all know about, and which was dealt with over 10 years ago by the likes of Julie Gardner in a professional, consistent manner, and which should have been nailed on the head. And to know that there's people going through people's social media accounts and spending their life digging things up just to get all this sort of stuff. I mean, get a bloody life and get a job. And what they do, Big Finish, they cancelled that. They've scrapped the Jim Dreyfuss one with Tom Baker he recorded, although I believe now, since the GB News article, they're bringing that out. The John Barrowman one with Dave Tennant.
They've had a complete turnaround about certainly releasing that.
But they haven't made it known, is it? So if the alleged trans activists, if they found out, would go mad. They would absolutely go mad. And we know that at some point they're going to bring the Barrowman and Tennant one out. Because it's Barrowman and Tennant together, so that'll happen again. But what gets me about this whole thing is just they're so hypocritical, because they've allowed certain actors, and I'm going to say them, Marina Sirtis and Colin Baker, who are also equally vocal in their opinions on social media.
Marina Sirtis in particular, that has surprised me now you come to mention it.
Yeah, but they've allowed them to continue working with them, and they've allowed them
about subjects that are just as divisive, aren't they? And
equally so.
Good point, because I don't know much about the issue, as I suspect not many of us do. We just hear whispers of it and whatever. But Mr. Dreyfuss, he was speaking about something that he obviously felt personally passionate enough about. And I think for us to see that reaction to it from Big Finish, it was surprising.
It was pathetic.
The response was the response, as you said, was nothing short of cowardly, and it was surprising from
I think shallow.
They needn't have even acknowledged it at all.
All they were doing is they were terrified of these alleged trans activists.
I'm a fan of Big Finish. I buy a lot of Big Finish. I listen to a lot of Big Finish, and I think that they're generally a quality product. I don't think this year has been a particularly strong year for them. I think that they are, how can I put this? They're in a period where they may have saturated the market quite a lot, and they need to reset, maybe. And
it's not just
I also think that the way that they handle instances like this at social media, that their interaction with the fan base, I think they're starting to lose perspective a little as to who their target audience are, who buys their product. And I would hate to see this line of merchandise certainly disappear completely. I want to continue receiving quality productions from Big Finish.
But what you've got here is you're now got the danger. I mean, they've shown the point about Colin and Marina being retained and hired by them is simply because there's a perception there of what is the correct opinion and the correct thing to have, and they obviously have it. So what Big Finish have done is they actually illustrated absolutely 100% what line they're on. So when Marina Sirtis goes kicking off about her absolute politics and Colin says all his politics, that's the right politic.
Yeah,
and you can't have the other stuff. That's the hypocrisy that gets me. And what also gets me from Doctor Who fandom, and if anybody's going to get offended about this is your problem. You know, you can go around as a Doctor Who fan and criticising the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall era, and then you'll go and buy a Big Finish product, which is exactly the same thing because it's all coming through there. And they're cancelling certain actors and doing that. No, it is because they've fired James.
I think there's connective tissue, and I think they work closer together than people are aware across BBC studios. But I don't think we can. I mean, to level that at the people who just want to be entertained, and particularly people who may not get that from current on-screen Doctor Who, and may see a version of a Doctor Who that they recognise or at least hear it on audio, and to reach for that. I think that's understandable. And if
I think it shows a lack of awareness, because if you're going to have a production company that is saying, well, you can't work for us and you can't work for us, but you can because you're not going to get us into trouble, that tells me an awful lot. That says it works a similar way.
As you were saying though earlier on about several matters, there are certain things that the general public have no concept of, and there are certain matters that even a large portion of fan base has no real idea of. There are people who watch our show and listen to our podcasts, and even that were part of our Type 40 Facebook group that had no idea that all this stuff with James Dreyfus was going on.
Absolutely.
Because most of it happened just on Twitter. You know, and it seems strange to me that one social media platform, it's always this one where there's all the trouble and the drama and the campaigns and the cancelling and the targeting and the bullying.
Although that has come into Facebook now as well, as we've seen actually today on the Type 40 page. It is there now.
Through a little onto Facebook too. I agree, but you know what you call awareness. These are issues and politics or even business matters. One could say that for the person who clocks in and clocks out, and Doctor Who is something that they are perhaps only partly connected with, apart from the fiction, they won't be aware of any of this either, will they?
And why aren't they aware of it? I mean, well, yes, there is a reason
there should be.
Yeah, absolutely there is, because what they're doing is they are so frightened of a small minority. They're putting people out of work or not hiring people. And because a small minority agrees with this other voice, they're keeping them. Now, that is sheer hypocrisy there. There's no balance there at all.
But what I'm saying is the connection, though, between the philosophy and the culture at BBC Studios being directly connected to what goes on.
I'm not mentioning BBC Studios here at all. I'm not interested in BBC Studios.
But you're the one. Yeah, but you are the one who you've said that if you're saying you don't support the Jodie Whittaker version of Doctor Who, but you're happy to buy Big Finish, and they're kind of the same thing. I think for most people there is a massive disconnect between those two.
Well, why is there a massive disconnect? Now, I'm going to challenge you on that. Why? Because if you're criticising the wokeness of the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall era, then why aren't you criticising the wokeness that's creeping into Big Finish? When their woke attitude is cancelling an actor like Jimmy Dreyfus or John. Now that's an example there of sheer hypocrisy.
The audience. Well, I think that that kind of content has definitely made its way into Big Finish's content, their actual production.
Yeah. So why are you supporting Big Finish?
And people have noticed, and I think reviews have reflected that as well. I mean, I haven't heard. I'm selective about what I buy from Big Finish simply because of the fact they make so much of it. But there are people like the Rabbi from Another Planet who listen to a great deal of their output.
And yet he'll criticise the Jodie Whittaker, Chris Chibnall era. So
yeah, but
I don't get it. Why one and not the other?
Well, he does openly criticise in his reviews.
He's still buying.
And he's not the only one. You have to buy it to find out whether you like it or not. To find out whether that product is to your tastes.
Again, I think it comes down to this misguided loyalty that Doctor Who fans especially have towards anything with the Doctor Who logo on. I'm very lucky in that I've got an ability to go, cut the cord, sod it, I'm not interested. Others don't seem to have that because they are loyal to the brand, even if it's been dragged through the mud, as it is now.
Makes you or anybody else who's got that harder line, particularly there, I don't think that makes you any more or any less of a fan of this show and part of this community. And I completely understand your reasoning behind it.
Yeah, but I do feel that there is that sort of, you know, if you're not aware of these things, then you need to look at a little bit more. But I do think, from my point of view, this business is totally out of order this year, and that's why I wanted to bring them in, because I just think
I don't think it's been a good year for them, and they could absolutely have handled all of that a lot better.
Well, they shouldn't be frightened of a small, extreme minority of alleged activists that are working only on Twitter, and they were, and they sacked, with the most monstrous way of ever doing it, by not telling him, a very talented actor who will now never ever want anything more to do with this show, in whatever format it's in. And I think that's a great shame.
I do see, and I do wonder, because it has, you know, they've announced, I think it was in August time, that they were going to be effectively, there'll be a soft relaunch of Big Finish in early 2022, a restructure of their line of Doctor Who adventures in particular. And this starts, it's going to be 12 new audio series, one for each of the Doctors from the past television incarnations, and each series will then release one new installment per year as box sets, with releases staggered all the way from January through to December. So there's this stronger, reasserted, realigned initiative as regards products. I would like to think, I mean, these are troubling times, and I suppose, you know, Sarah, you used the word cowardly. Mm-hmm. There are people out there who are very, very vocal and who seem to be very, very powerful and influential. And when they click their fingers and demand somebody is cancelled or denied work or denied platform wherever, that does seem to manifest and to happen. And whilst I'm not excusing Big Finish at all, I think they could have handled that situation completely differently. I think James Dreyfus was done a terrible disservice, and I think that it does look as if James has effectively uncancelled himself after that interview with GB News. It's really brought it to light, and a lot of people, when it was not exactly brought, you know, this wasn't headline news, but the broader Doctor Who fan base became aware of it. You know, there was a lot of people asking Big Finish, well, why would you do that? Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see where they go next year, and maybe if James is interested, and I think it'd be completely understandable for an actor of his caliber and of his profile, you could understand if he would turn them down. But if they approach him and maybe to recreate the role again in the future, I don't know. If they can't repair their relationship with James Dreyfus, I hope they do sort of learn from it going on, and that next year.
Why would he want to? Why would he want to go back to a company that treated him so badly?
Probably would.
He's a very proud guy. He doesn't need them. I mean, I know he's preparing. No. He's possibly doing a one-man show next year, with various characters he's created. And if he does that, then fantastic. But I can't see him going back to, and I can't see them having the balls to ask him back, because they are frightened of alleged activists.
People in the chat have also. Well, there's a lot of people who agree with you for a start, and there's a lot of people who didn't really understand the scope of the situation with James Dreyfus before that GB News broke. It's Matthew Pounder says it's difficult letting any of this stuff go. Problem being, says just simply keep activism out of our Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, everything, not just Doctor Who. I mean, it's happening again, isn't it, with Harry Potter? And
it's true. That is true.
It's happening across all.
Garbage says, I am watching Jodie Doctor Who. I don't want to, but I feel I must. I love that JT can do that.
Can do what?
To not watch it. Cut the cord. I mean, it's interesting that Garbage there has said that he feels he must, and that's what I'm talking about. There's a misplaced loyalty. I reckon if people actually didn't watch it, it would be down to just over 1 million now, and those millions would be the so-called activists that are watching it just purely because she's a woman.
Don't watch it. I don't watch
it. Well, that's where you and I have managed to do it.
80s fanboy here draws attention to the fact that the BBC has now dumped Stonewall.
Allegedly.
I don't understand. I'm not in possession of all the facts about that. I don't know a great deal about Stonewall or the situation. So yeah, anybody who's interested in further reading on this, go and I would imagine do a Google search, find out the latest news on what the score is there. Because the whole thing with Stonewall, I don't know how long ago that was that James Dreyfus was involved in that, or where that a letter he signed, how that ended up, how that ultimately played out. But in terms of his career and his role with Doctor Who on audio, obviously it didn't end well, and the relationship with Big Finish seems to have been soured by that. His perception of the Doctor Who fan base was understandably quite coloured by his experiences on social media. I would like to think that
they were horrible, those fans. Horrible.
If he never plays the part again, he will at least have happier experiences with maybe some of you watching and listening out there. If you enjoy James Dreyfus' portrayal of the Master on Big Finish, please let him know. If you go and see any of his shows, if you ever bump into the guy, shake his hand and say thank you, because it does seem he's been done a serious disservice. And I certainly wish him well in everything in his future career.
What Big Finish have done this year is highlighted the absolute problem with show business as a whole, because you can't say anything now. You will be judged. You have to toe the line. There are lots of people in the industry that are against this stuff and are terrified.
It makes any sense. I mean, look how quiet we all are, just knowing that this is even being aired here.
I'm not quiet. Bring it on.
He's not quiet.
I'm not in full possession. I don't have the breadth of understanding of other people about the topics. I do try not to speak about things I don't know too much about, and just to listen a little bit more. And I do feel that if anything, I'm not about to preach to the entirety of Twitter, but I think that Twitter generally could do with listening a little more. Blue Planet says that my tolerance for this behaviour is thin now. I'm compelled to stop funding companies that go woke or cancel people unfairly. They don't deserve our money. There's a hard line there from Blue Planet.
Yep.
Problem being, says JT, is simply making a plea to remember that if you don't support the BBC for woke programming and their cancellation mob, Big Finish has done the same. Do you want to fund that? And it's... he
has a point. He has a very good point there. And you know what? Seriously, actors just stay off Twitter. That's what they should do.
I agree.
Stay off Twitter.
I've always thought that. I think politicians should also stay off Twitter on both sides of the Atlantic.
I totally agree.
If you're a public figure, then I think
stay off it. Just stay off it.
I agree with Ian. Yeah, it's easy to do that. I mean, back in the day, you didn't know an actor's political persuasions. You may guess.
I'm still not
you
interested
didn't know,
in the political beliefs
and therefore they didn't alienate their audience. And what's happening now is that there is a divide in everything, because everybody is now taking sides, and there's no respect for the honor of democracy anymore. And you have to be seen to be doing stuff, because you are terrified that these little small yappy type dogs who call themselves activists are going to come and bite you. And we've seen that running through in the last version of Doctor Who, which has been a spectacular failure because of it. So, it's worrying.
This failure can all be traced back to this wave, this culture war, whatever you want to call it. Lord Thoth says it isn't just Doctor Who, it's all our pop culture favourites. It is madness to watch this train wreck. It's like watching an accident happen right before your eyes. It's hard to look away.
Do you know what? I was talking. I was interviewed recently, and I was after the interview. I was talking to the person that was interviewing me, and he was a true normie, and we were talking about this very same subject, and he didn't get it, and that's why I understand why people are like this now. Because no matter what logic I threw at him, he couldn't see it. So that's how they are. What else can you?
Just want to say thank you to Charlotte Shields for joining us tonight. She had to pop off.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Bye.
Anyway,
thanks for saying goodbye.
I think she did.
I did too.
Yeah. But anyway, that was the thing about what when I was asked to do this, because I didn't realize it all had to be. I mean, to be honest though, I would have struggled this year to have nominated anybody, because I'm just so not invested in any part of the show anymore. I'm generally, my life is very busy as it is. I am not interested in what's going on right now. I don't have hopes for the future anymore after Russell Don't Drop the T's rant the other week. I just don't know where my place in Doctor Who fandom will be in the future. I have no clue. My Doctor Who finished in 1989.
Well, you know what?
So,
I agree with you, JT, but I still want to put faith in Russell T. Let's see what he does.
I wish I could, but after what he said the other week, no.
Yeah, I hear you, JT. I hear you.
You know, I will watch it very happily when it comes back, as long as I like the lead. I will not watch it if it's a female, but if it's an actor that I think can pull the role off, I will watch it and then I'll judge it. We'll see.
No, your place is with us, JT. This is your place.
Well, as long as they keep bringing out the versions of the Blu-ray, that's quite happy, isn't it?
Okay, well, yeah, thanks for that, JT. I know it's something that you feel very passionate about. I think a great many of us do.
So, yeah.
And as somebody who is a long-term listener of Big Finishers, I know that you used to be. You know, I'd like to think that certainly creatively they turned the corner next year, and they maybe start to sort of thin out the product a little and reconnect with that sort of. I think that it used to be a prestige line. I think they just make a little bit too much of it. I think for the quality control to stay high, and also for us to be enthused, because we can't permanently be enthused. Even those of us who love what you're doing, I think that when the next big event is only 7 to 10 days away from the last big event, as I think I've said before, then it becomes much of a muchness. And I certainly want the line to continue. I think it is, generally speaking, creatively, safe hands with Big Finish. I think they are the best at what they do. And I do stay away from anything that the rabbi tells me is woke, because these things, they're not cheap. But I think that at the end of the day, they have a customer base, and they can't afford to even test the boundaries of the whole.
Well, they have done this year. They really have done this year.
Or the going broke thing.
I look forward if anybody from Big Finish is watching, I look forward to seeing you at any possible future conventions I may have to attend. I've got a few things to tell you.
Okay, we're going to have one last entrant now into the possible winner of the Companions of 2021. Who's going to win this year? You've got to choose from any of the people that we've been speaking about this evening. But here is one last person for you to consider. And we're going to go over to Simon Horton to tell us about this gentleman. Why have you nominated?
Hold on a second. No. Take him off. I'm not ready yet. Take him off.
Okay.
I'm going to cheer it all up now, because that's been really, really miserable. I'm really depressed now.
Hang on a minute. It wasn't miserable. That's my opinion. That's not miserable at all.
I know, but I'm just saying, no, it's fine. So I'm just saying that's fine. So let's try and cheer it back up again a little bit, because no, look, let's just try and cheer it up a little bit, because it's Doctor Who and we're here to celebrate Doctor Who. So I want to talk about happy stuff just for a moment. So that's fine. I agree with you, JT, to be totally clear. I totally 100% agree. So I'm just saying, we're going to talk about, I'm just trying to get it back to a little bit of cheery stuff, which is, firstly, I want to answer Crimpling Doubloon, who wants to know whether I'm wearing Romana's bathing costume from the Leisure Hive. Absolutely. And secondly, to answer Blue Planet, yes, it is an official season 18 Doctor Who scarf. I think they're still available, so go out and get them. Anyway, here we go. So yes, my companion for 2022 undoubtedly is the brilliant Neil Cole, without any question whatsoever. I didn't need to even think about this when I knew we were going to come up with a companion for 2022.
Friend of the show, Neil Cole, as well. He's been a guest several times on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil has just had the thing with Neil is, bless him, he's had such a tough time, because he opened the museum literally not long before lockdown, before COVID really hit. He got about a year to start to build himself up. And then it all started to sort of go downhill with COVID, and he had to close, and now he's reopening, and he's recently had the reopening with Sophie Aldred there, which has been great. But it's not been tough. It's not been easy, rather, for any of these small businesses, and Neil's is no exception. And yet he's kept so positive throughout all of this. Neil himself, bless him, has had COVID recently, and he's still suffering from COVID, and he's having a really tough time, and he's still trying to keep the museum going and keep enthusiasm there. and he does it in spades. Neil
which museum is this? For the people out there who don't know, Simon, what's the name of Neil Cole's museum? And where
this is the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi, which is up in Allendale, in Northumberland, and it's just one of the best places you will ever go to. If you're a Doctor Who fan and you've not been to this yet, you must make a journey up there and go and have a look at it, because it's brilliant. And the big thing as well this year, Neil very kindly got lent Broton, the original Broton from Terror of the Zygons by Mike Tucker, which is fantastic. So there's so much to go and see there. Neil is constantly putting so many new exhibits on display. This is, this is just one of the best places you can possibly go as a Doctor Who fan. In fact, to be honest, it's about the only place you can go as a Doctor Who fan and see some of this stuff. And this is all his private collection of costumes and all the rest of it, and props from Doctor Who. But he's very kindly just literally put them on display, opened his doors and said to everybody, come and see all this stuff that you are not going to see anywhere else, because so much of this stuff just disappears behind closed doors into private collections that nobody ever sees. These are genuine, most of the stuff that Neil has got up there is genuine screen used stuff. Props.
These are, in many cases, Simon, they are things that Neil saved from skips or rescued from people who'd bought them at auction and maybe never really knew what to do with them. And so they've sat in lofts sometimes for 10, 20 years. Things that he has personally restored or refurbished.
He's restored them incredibly. So the work that he's done, the amount of work and the length of time that he puts into restoring these, and the money that he puts into restoring these for a future generation, and then puts them on display for everybody to see. It's just incredible. And he's worked so hard at this, and he's had so many knockbacks, so much tough time. Bless him. Earlier on this year,
Council were against him, weren't they? A couple of years ago, he really has had uphill battles every step of the way.
Earlier on this year, Mice got into some of the display cabinets and ate half of the Graf Vindicae's costume from the Rebust operation, and ate one of the Shobogun costumes from Gallifrey from the Invasion of Time. So he's had some real knocks, and he keeps on coming back. And I just absolutely salute this guy, because his enthusiasm is never short of the scale. He's one of the nicest people you could meet. He will happily talk to you till the cows come home. So if you are a fan going in, you're not just going to see the exhibition. You will get to talk to, Neil will talk to you forever about the costumes and the props he's got, because he's so enthusiastic about them. He loves talking about them. He loves sharing them with people. He's just one of the most positive people you could possibly.
And it's important to clarify that the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi, it's housed in his own home, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the basement. It's in the basement of his home in Allendale. And Allendale itself is a beautiful little place that you can go to. And as I say, he's my hero really for this year. He's my companion for the year, because, as I say, I just admire him so much, because he's giving back so much to the Doctor Who community. There are other people that are not. It wasn't the Talons Rat though. He hasn't got. I don't know where the Talons Rat has ended up. I think it's probably in a skip where the Talons Rat. It's rotted in a corner somewhere. But he gives so much back to Doctor Who fans. That's what's so great about Neil, is that, as I say, this is the only place at the moment in the whole country, possibly arguably the whole world, I don't know, where you can actually go and see so many original screen-used props and costumes. And so I salute him for that.
And we mentioned, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, how the museum has just finally reopened, which has also been an uphill battle for Neil. His location was used in the filming of Keith Barnfather's Lockdown Who DVD earlier on in the year. So that was a big boon to him. But what he really needed, what's always been his dream, is to bring Doctor Who and the fans closer together, within the plexiglass of the units that are dividing all these exhibits from one another at this location. He's trying to bring fans as close as they could possibly get to all of this classic series history. Although I think there is some new series stuff in there too. and to keep the spirit of that original.
No, I don't think there is. Actually, I could be wrong there.
He's got some Torchwood aliens in there, hasn't he? And I think he's got a couple of things. Yeah, some classic era stuff. I think he'd kill me if I didn't acknowledge that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if he's got any new Who. I don't think he's got anything new Who at all. I could be wrong.
He told me that his mission was to have one item from every classic series story in there in some way, shape, or form. You've got to admire Neil's ambition, his tenacity, his commitment in the face of so much adversity. I don't think we have time to list all the things that have nearly happened to Neil on his journey here. It does seem to be the case. The word is getting out. More and more people, television, radio, newspapers, books. More and more people are speaking to Neil and are aware that the exhibition's there. And obviously, as restrictions continue to lift in stages all over the UK, and as the profile of the museum seems to grow, who knows what will happen in the future? I mean, the story about the mummy head from Pyramids of Mars that he recently took delivery of, it was just enchanting. And this whole story, Neil's entire story is incredibly romantic and a story of a sort of triumph, really.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's great about Neil, and this is why we really do need to celebrate this as Doctor Who fans, because, as I say, the museum is literally one of a kind. And other people out there are getting the message as well of what Neil's trying to do. And that's why the mummy head was basically Neil got the chance to go for this mummy head, because the owner of it didn't want it to disappear into a private collection. They wanted it to go on display. And so people, and there are other exhibits within there that are the same. People have specifically said to Neil, I want this stuff to go on display so other fans can see it. And that's very, very admirable. So this positive mentality is beginning to seep out to other collectors now who are, that's got to be a good thing for all of us. Because it grieves me how many items are locked behind closed doors that we don't even know where they are, let alone we will ever see them. And so I salute all the people that are trying to get that stuff out there so we can all literally go and see it at our leisure whenever we want to. You can go tomorrow if you want to and see the original mummy head from Pyramids of Mars, or Mestor, or the Garm, or the Black Scout Cyberman from Attack of the Cybermen. These are big things that you can go tomorrow to have a look at if you want to. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm not going to knock anybody who goes to something like Time Fracture. I'm curious myself, as you are, Barnaby. But I think if it's a toss-up, I think I'd rather go to the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi and see our mate Neil Cole. Great pick there, Simon. I think Neil has had, he's had a challenging year, and we do hope that 2022 brings him, obviously, that he pulls through with the terrible COVID that he's suffered with, and that the museum continues to go from strength to strength. Next year, more people find out about it. And we're going to throw this open to you guys on social media, watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast, in the comments section, in the live chat. Let us know who of the candidates we've spoken about on this edition of the show do you want to be chosen as the Type 40 Companion of 2021? And also, let us know who you think we've missed. If there are people out there that you believe have made a big contribution, have made a difference to you in, as JT's right, it hasn't really been a boon year for the show or the intellectual property, or however you look at it. But there are people who may have made it that little bit brighter for you. Let us know who they are if we've missed them.
Starry-eyed.
And we'll give them a bit of a kiss back. It's definitely... apart from you lot, of course. It is time. It's time that we revealed. Yes, because we did this last year. And on Doctor Who Day, a few weeks ago, we launched our Doctor Who Companions of 2021 event. So we asked you guys out there watching on Facebook and YouTube, and everybody who goes to the Facebook page, all the social medias, to pick your Companion of 2021 from a list of such that we assembled and talked about on the show. We had some fun with this, I think. It was fun. And we came to a group of people who, for completely different reasons, that we felt had made their mark, not necessarily on Doctor Who itself, but more on the Whoniverse, on the community, on what you could call the fan experience, really. You may remember that this time our picks were Christopher Eccleston, Jamie Magnus Stone, Julie Gardner, Neil Cole, and Louise Jameson.
That's a good selection, isn't it?
It's a great selection. It's a good scattershot of people as well that have made different contributions for completely different reasons. Obviously, they're all wonderful. We all think that the Doctor Who universe is a better place for having the input of these people over the last year or however. I think personally, that Christopher Eccleston, I feel like it's like he's come home and it just feels so right. Jamie Magnus Stone, I think he is a talented man and I do hope that he gets to prove it on a better show with a better production team at some point in the future. Julie Gardner, who we know watches the show. Cheers again, Julie. You've been wonderful. Thanks for doing exactly what we asked you to do. Merry Christmas, Julie. Neil Cole, friend of the show, just a fabulous human being, fiercely creative, the most resourceful, tenacious man you could imagine, and so full of stories. Delight to meet. And Louise Jameson, she's one of those people, isn't she? She's one of Britain's top character actresses. She's
brilliant.
Okay, she's perhaps not as enigmatic as a Mary Morris. We know a lot about Louise. She's been very generous with the fans over the years. But Doctor Who, without Louise Jameson, I can't really imagine that somehow. But yeah, thank you to everybody who voted in the polls in both the Type 40 Facebook group and over in the Whonatics, old habits die hard, in the Whonatics Facebook group and on all the social medias. We've had a lot of fun with that. I'm glad that people got invested in it and played their part. But we have got a winner, everybody, about to be revealed. And I genuinely had no idea who it was going to be this time. It was that close across all the platforms. But yeah, I'm delighted to say, and somewhat cautious to say, congratulations, Julie Gardner. You are a companion of 2021. Now, thanks for listening. Don't let us down. Julie Gardner and Bad Wolf, they are taking over production of Doctor Who now, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the show. They've just registered that new company, haven't they? We don't even know what they're going to do with it. Whoniverse 1, that's Julie Gardner and Jane Tranter and Bad Wolf and Russell T Davies. They're going to be steering the ship creatively from 2023 onwards. Quite where and how, and certainly for how long, and what it's going to look like. Feel like we don't know any of that yet. But I feel very excited. I'm as excited about Julie's involvement as I am Russell's, JT. And I think we've all come down from that initial high in the autumn. But regardless of that, I think about the conversations that we had back in February, where we made our pleas to Bad Wolf. Just seems like the natural place for Doctor Who to go based on Discovery of Witches, based on his Dark Materials. And I still keep that. I still keep hanging on to that. And I have to place faith, if not in Russell, because I don't know Russell. I know he's older now and he may have a completely different mission statement, but I do kind of trust Julie.
The proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. And as I've said several times before, I will judge what the forthcoming show on who they cast as the Doctor, nothing else. And if I don't agree with the casting, I'm not on board. That's as simple as that. I will leave it very much in the past and move on. That's it.
It's appropriate that we all have. It's appropriate. It's understandable, and it's only natural that we all have our lines in the sand and our ideals, isn't it? And I certainly respect that call. We've got a comment here from 8-Bit Sync Boy who says, "Why does Julie Gardner look like she's twerking in that picture?"
It was the previous picture. The other picture.
The previous one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there's another one on the right. There's a bit of a
milk thing going on there. And she does look very odd. It's a very, very odd pose. I don't know why they put it out as a publicity stunt. It's bad of both of them.
That's the Cagney and Lacey shot, isn't it?
That one. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, we'll know this time next year about. Obviously, we'll know a lot more about what's going to be happening. I just hope that Julie's very close to Russell. Show business is poison at the moment. It really, really is. They're all virtue signaling and bending the knee left, right, and centre to make themselves look good. I believe that if Julie and Jane together can control Russell, and I don't know. At this moment in time, I've got no faith in it at all. Because of the last several months, but we'll see. We'll have to just see what happens. Time will tell.
Yeah, time
it always does.
Yeah.
We have Who Fan Dan is commenting along on YouTube and says, I don't get how the new company works with Bad Wolf. Well, the good news is for you, Who Fan Dan, because I know you've only been watching a few weeks. While we're away over our Christmas and New Year for the break, we have a playlist full of these wonderful live streams and podcasts where we went forensic on that very subject. Anything that anybody would want to know about this company that's public knowledge, we talk about at length. I think we nail it all down quite well, really, and have been doing since, actually probably since around February, but firmly since late summer when this news came out.